Welcome to the Teacher's Pep Rally. If you missed our last episode, we spoke to author Anne Morgan about reading around the world. Please go back and check it out. And while you are there, leave us a review. We value you in these conversations. Our guest is an American composer, teacher, and dean of music at the Juilliard School. His work has been commissioned and performed by artists and ensembles, including, check out this list, Pete, Philadelphia Orchestra, Pittsburgh Symphony, Minnesota Orchestra, National Symphony, easy for me to say, Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center, and Carnegie Hall. He's a committed advocate for looking at all kinds of inclusion and diversity in the types of music and music programs. He serves on the National Program Committee of New Music USA and is a member of the Distinguished Mentors Council of Composers now. Grab your favorite instrument and the first chair. Let's talk about life and learning. Please welcome to the Teacher's Pep Rally, David Ludwig.
Welcome.
David, welcome.
Well, applause right back. Thank you very much.
We are so excited to have you and looking forward to this conversation and getting into the creative arts and talking about music. Real quickly, before we get started, Letitia, do you want to tell David about what we've been doing before we start getting into our conversation?
Absolutely. So, David, welcome again. And I, too, am looking forward to our time together. So here at the Teacher's Pep Rally, we've started doing something called Happy Happenings. And it's really our attempt to be very intentional, to pay attention to the good stuff going on around us in our day-to-day living. And then we just come together here at the Teacher's Pep Rally and kind of share things that made us smile, made us happy, or even sparked a little gratitude in us. Our way to send some love and light into the world. So hoping that you have a happy happening to share with us, but I will let you marinate on that. And I will start with you, Pete. What you got for us this week?
Oh boy, we just closed our biggest project production of the year. It was very successful, very happy with it. But what really hit it home for me was the amount of support from our families and community.
Wow.
To the point where they've gotten us in touch with a retail realtor, and we are definitely going towards that next step of getting our own place and being independent of any school system, but being in our own driver's seat. So it's really good things going. I'm very thankful for the community support, and we got some great things going.
Thank you for sharing, Pete. And how appropriate that we have David on tonight,
Yes.
right? Because this is all about building community. And so I'm so pleased that the community is supporting you in that way. That is awesome. Erin, what you have for us this week?
Yeah, I'm going to share something just because I think it could be something anyone could use as a technique. I was in a workshop that I was asked to participate in through my school district, and the department handed everyone a pack of seeds. And if you watch our YouTube, I'm putting that up. They are forget-me-not seeds, so very clever. And it says wishing, growing, succeeding together. And it's just like a little sticker they put on it. And so I brought it home, and I'm gonna put them out in the backyard, and I'll let you know if they grow. But I just thought that was just kind of a sweet little thing to do and an opportunity for me to be out in my garden with spring having sprung.
Very cool.
Absolutely. That is such a sweet idea.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. So, two quick things. One, I really have been getting just such value out of serving in my community and running a grief support group. And although, it's obviously sad occasion that brings us all together, being able to lead them in their time of grief and loss has been really satisfying and really touching for me. COVID is still on the back heels, right? So many have lost family members. So that's really been gratifying for me. And on a much lighter note, surprised hubby with tickets to The Matrix. So we're going to go see The Matrix on Saturday, balancing it all out, right? Serving in the community and doing some self-care and kind of just hanging out. So those are my happy happenings for this week. David, we'd love to hear from you.
How do you all know each other? Can I ask that question? Like,
That's a good question.
How are the four of us together right now? Or how are
There we go.
three of us?
Right. Yes, that's The Matrix, I think. She talked about
The Matrix got me wondering. Yeah.
Yeah. So real quickly, Letitia and I used to work in the same school district in Atlanta. I was actually, the first time we met, I was picked as teacher of the year at my school, and our district does this huge ceremony, or they used to at the end of the year, for all the teachers of the year at all their schools. It's just really special, nice little banquet type thing. And Letitia was one of the hype girls in the room getting us ready with the rest of her team before they brought us out, because they would introduce us all. And I took a look at this girl, and she had this amazing, inspiring education t-shirt on. And I was like, that girl and I are soulmates. There was something about her. So we ended up connecting. She did some amazing things for me and my department with talking about teacher burnout. And we've just been buds ever since. And Pete and I met, we are big Disney fans and also entrepreneurs on the
We
side.
met at a conference. Yep.
Yeah. So we met at a conference that had kind of those two things related. And then here we are with you.
Disneypreneurs. Got it.
Yes. Well,
Disneypreneurs.
and during COVID, Aaron reached out and said, "Hey, I'm thinking of a podcast to help support teachers." And we're 87 episodes later. We're still doing it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But it started during COVID.
87. Wow.
So
Well, I mean, I'm grateful every day. The one I was just listening to a really interesting podcast, and they were saying how anger and gratitude are like oil and water. They don't, and how gratitude is the greatest antidote to anger and a lot of other negative emotions. So I try to practice as much gratitude as I can. I have so much to be grateful for. I have an incredible place to be. I work at an incredible school, have an amazing wife, and 4 wonderful cats. So don't tell our landlord. This is going online, isn't it? Well, anyway.
Don't you worry. Don't you worry.
Okay,
I think you're good.
2 of them are temporary. How's that?
There we go.
That's what I'll say. So, but gratitude is a tremendous antidote, and it's also a tremendous motivator. So, I could pull down kind of concerts I've seen lately, or it's very, very fortunate to get an award from the American Academy of Arts and Letters recently, which kind of made my year for me personally as a composer. But really the focus of my gratitude is that I just get to work with and be around really amazing people every day. I taught a class today and it went well, and that's enough, right?
Right.
The feeling that we get after we teach, we work with a group of students, for me in some ways is better or stronger than even after a great performance of a work of mine. There's something you take with you afterwards, right? As a teacher. And it just makes the whole day, the whole week better. So yeah, lots of it, lots of gratitude. Thank you.
Wonderful.
For asking.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, David, for sharing. And I love how, because that you shared that, because big and small, right? And I always tell our listeners, and even in my own practice, that even the smallest thing, you start to realize how many things we are grateful for, like even being able to swallow, you can get that granular, right? When you think about people that can't. So thank you so much. And congratulations on that amazing achievement. Well, let's not hold back the conversation any longer. Aaron, take it away.
Yeah, so I'm really sitting here thinking about David. I did list some really amazing things that you've been a part of. And I'm curious, growing up, were you right away drawn to music, or, tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. I wanted to be a steamroller until I was about 5 years old. And then I guess I realized I couldn't do that.
Right.
So I was always drawn to making things, so I would, write plays. Writing plays is as close to being a composer, as I can imagine, except instead of musicians, you have actors, reading your lines. Yeah. I just was always kind of trying to express myself by creating. So I went to Oberlin College in Ohio, is where I started. I grew up here in New York City, and at Oberlin, they have a wonderful conservatory and a college. So I come from a very musical family, and being a music major was kind of fraught. Like that was a big deal if you come from a very musical family, and sometimes I think people realize that even even if you're successful, sometimes it's harder as a
Mm-hmm.
musician because there's even more to tend to and more to keep up and to think about, more pressure, external pressure.
Mm.
So I started college as an art history major. I don't know why that's like a better like career path or something. Like, oh, do something reliable where you can make money. Be an art history major. But I enjoyed it, and but I knew that I was much more interested in creating than writing about something that had been created. So part of the reason I went to Oberlin was so I could kind of slide over into the conservatory when no one was looking, which is what I did. And it's been music ever since, but I started writing music when I was 8 years old.
Wow.
And just continued to pursue it and did it all through high school and spent many, many hours just kind of on my own, being a nerd and writing music and loving that. So that's kind of the history. And then I continued, for composers, it's great to be in school because you have a community then to support your music. It's a cold world when you leave school. So if you're fortunate enough to have school to be in, I went from Oberlin to Manhattan School, then to the Curtis Institute in Philadelphia, where I was as a teacher for many years, then Juilliard for a year. Then I got hired at Curtis to teach, and then I got my PhD at University of Pennsylvania, which is right across the river from Curtis. I didn't do a lot of sleeping during that time, but I was teaching and being a student. And then after that, 2 years ago, I became Dean of Music here at Juilliard. But teaching was always an important part of my life. And the year that I went here to Juilliard as a student, which is 2001, 2002,
Oh boy.
I also was teaching. I was teaching at a school called Cheyney University of Pennsylvania, first HBCU in the country, I believe. It was the first. And so that was my first teaching job in higher ed. But for me, it was always something that informed what I did. So education and study has been really at the center of my life as I've built a career as a composer around that.
So
Wow.
I'm hearing a lot of that. This is very much a passion of yours, right? That music, there's something almost into your core soul that you want to be surrounded, right, by that creativity. Even the writing part of composing music, I'm thinking about. So as you've kind of traveled around the world, or all through your journey from the age of even 8 when you started already composing pieces of work, what are some things that maybe you think back on that were most impactful to you, and maybe then you use that to kind of be the teacher or role model for your students, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, we're always paying it forward back to the teachers who meant the most to us, So I could start with Mr. Tenaglia in 3rd grade, who we called Mr. T before there was even a Mr. T.
The original.
Yeah, he was the original Mr. T. But just going through the people who took the time to be gentle with me and help kind of show me a way forward and how to be in the world, like real mentorship, that meant a lot. And that's an important part of it because, not all of us, even though I came from a musical family, I didn't necessarily know how to be. And what do I mean by that? How to, how to interact with others in a professional and kind way. Like I don't think I was ever unkind or anything like that. I just maybe, had to learn how to kind of get focused and be serious about my work. I remember the first time I went to an artist retreat. They have these artist retreats. 2 of the big ones are Yaddo and McDowell, and these are places where you can go away and they put you in a cabin in the woods and just say, okay, write your music, or
Wow.
make your sculpture, write your play. And I was very young. I was 10 years younger than the next artist there, about 30 people there. And I thought, wow, an artist retreat, this is going to be amazing. People are going to be running around and partying all the time. It's going to be great. And boy, it was not that, actually. People, people would have breakfast. If I managed to wake up in time, I would get there. And then people would be away all day and they're just working. So grateful to have the time away from, all of the things that kind of grab at you and stretch and pull you. And then in the evening, they would then go back to their studio to do more work. And I thought, well, this is kind of boring. And yet, at the end of my time there, that first time is so educational. So, in a way, I was being mentored by all those other artists to understand this is actually hard work. You use the word passion, Aaron, and passion is such a good word because the root of passion is suffering in Latin. It means to suffer. So it does cut both ways. It's a lot of hard work, and you kind of suffer through your art. But the rewards are as rich as they could be. So all of that has meant a lot to me. But at its core, the teachers, people who took the time, and I don't just mean in the class, and I don't just mean in composition lessons. I mean my friends as well, who patiently would say, if you write it that way, no one's going to want to play it. This kind of thing. Where that's the people who are most patient with me are the ones I have, I think, the greatest gratitude toward.
David, looking back, where would you say you start to find your voice as a composer? When did it start developing into your sound, that cohesive? Where did that start to come into being? I mean, was it at 10 years old, or did it develop naturally through the years?
It's such a good question. I think in some ways I'm still finding it, and maybe always will. That's part of what's fun.
Yep.
I always think of becoming an artist or developing as an artist as kind of like you can be in your canoe and like kind of paddle toward your goals, or you can be in an inner tube and just let it take you down the river and kind of see things as you go. I'm more of the inner tube kind of person, I think. So I'm still discovering, but I think my music has developed through stages. Some people write music that's very much like string quartet number 1, number 2, number 3, and it's just music about music. For me, every piece, I'm trying to tell a story. So in telling that story, the style might change, the genre might change, the approach and the sounds might change, because everything should be in the service of the message or story that I'm telling. And maybe it's a piece about something political, or maybe it's a piece about another work of art, or something from science. I love science and astronomy, and maybe it's about that. So usually the work is just about something that's of importance to me personally, and that I have the privilege of sharing that then with the world.
That is awesome. I'm sorry, Pete.
That's okay.
Thanks.
I have a number of aspiring writers, and I'm doing my best to foster that. So I'm wondering what advice you have to a beginning composer. If one of my students was listening right now, what would you say to them and share with them about getting to that next step?
Well, I think our most important tool as artists is openness. It's being open to avoid judgment, certainly to avoid bias if we can. We all have it. It's part of growing up and being in the world and being around other people. But the more open and non-judgmental we can be toward what we're listening to, and it's hard, because you're young or old, and you think, oh, why'd that person write that way? Or I don't want to hear this. This is no good, this music. But there's something to learn in every sound and in every piece of music and every effort that another human being puts out. So I would just say be open. And part of being open is to kind of voraciously take it all in. So if you're a young person and you're writing songs and you like folk music, that's cool. But, dive into some Beethoven, see how that goes. And conversely, if you love Beethoven, dive into some hip hop or reggae or, whatever it is, you'll find connections. For me as an artist, there's no knowledge I have that I wish I didn't have. So that's all part of it, that acquisition. classical music's kind of interesting because it's not really a genre, because we're talking about Gregorian chant 1,000 years ago, right? All the way to something one of my students wrote yesterday.
Hmm.
So if you want to aspire to be a composer, there's an awful lot to learn.
Mm.
A lot. So the more open you are, the faster it will come. The more open you are to inspiration. So that's what I would say. Be open.
Thank you.
I love that. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
No,
Erin.
go ahead, Letitia, please.
I was thinking, as we talked about you finding your voice, and really sounds like it's a continued process, probably for all of us, right? This continual refining of our voice. I love in my reading up on you and just researching and learning a little bit more about you, David. The Philadelphia Inquirer said a composer with something urgent to say. They described you as a composer with something urgent to say.
Mm.
So in the vein of your voice, what is your urgency of now message? You know, what is that thing that David has to say?
That's a great question. No, I didn't write that quote, and I didn't tell anyone to write that. So I just saying.
Okay,
Take it.
take it. It's you, bud.
That's beautiful.
But it's such a nice thing to say about me, and I know who wrote that, and that critic was always really generous, really kind. What's urgent to say? Well, certainly sharing what's important to me feels urgent.
Mhm.
In recent years, some of my music has gotten a little more either political, having to do with, I had a piece played the other day that I wrote maybe 12, 13 years ago. It's a long time ago, but it was about gun violence in America. I kind of set down that path then, and have felt more and more urgently. Some people say, oh, artists, stay in your lane, don't be political, but of course, art has never just been about entertainment. That's one part of it for sure.
Mhm.
But it's also about provoking people and engaging people. And artists have always been political. Artists have always been some of the biggest loudmouths out there, right?
Mhm.
So, that's been important to me, and also my own identity. I'm Jewish, and that's part of my personal identity. I didn't really grow up with it either. I had to come back to it because
Mm.
the town I grew up in, I said I grew up in New York. Well, before that, I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania where being Jewish was not necessarily a great thing. And I feel like personally, in my family on one side, there was a little maybe embarrassment about that. So I've been growing into that as well, and kind of learning about the traditional music of Central Asia and parts of Israel, and just Jewish traditional music. It speaks to me, and it's part of who I am. So I guess there's some urgency there too.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, it reminds me again, I keep with my English language arts hat, I just keep thinking about how much music is about writing and style and tone and a form of expression, as you were mentioning. It's storytelling, right? Listening to music, even the chanting that you mentioned, right? It's just that all has some connection to the existence of humanity at different points of the earth, but also in different parts of the timeline. How did you decide then that, because there's so many things that you could do in teaching music, so you have such a gift, and you probably could have just have done your own thing and been fine, but you decided to go into the classroom, right? And I'm assuming try to help students make those connections, think about this art as a form of expression. So how did that kind of go about? And then tell us a little bit of what the school year is like for you as your role at the Juilliard.
Yeah, well, much of what I did at Curtis, I taught a music history class. I taught some music theory. Composers end up being pretty good teachers of these things. I didn't get the best grades as a student, but that's okay, because if you really want to learn something, teach it. right?
Mm-hmm.
So I really got to learn a lot about what I was teaching over that time. It meant a lot to me. At a certain point, when I kind of got my license to be a lesson teacher, when I was old enough, I started teaching. I joined the composition faculty at Curtis. And, so one-on-one lessons are an incredible way to have impact. And classical music in a lot of ways is kind of like one of the last vestiges of the guild system, where you have this kind of master apprentice kind of thing. Here's the blacksmith, here's how to make a horseshoe, and a younger person, and they do it again and again with your guidance. So that has always really appealed to me. It keeps me energized. It keeps me plugged in to what's happening in the world. And also, I'm almost speaking to a younger version of myself too, sometimes it feels like. And so there's always a kind of therapy that happens, not real therapy, just saying, but it's very rewarding, I think, and not to sound selfish about it, because it's also tiring, as we all know. It's tiring to teach, and you have to commit all of yourself into it if you really want to do it. But the rewards are incredible, to see a young person grow and kind of acquire skills and develop and then express themselves. So that's kind of always what's done it for me. Now at Juilliard, so I became Dean of Music, or Dean and Director of the Music Division is my official title, in June 2021, just coming out of COVID, before Omicron, when we went back into COVID, and let's keep fingers crossed that we don't do that again.
Yes.
But that was an incredible moment for me. I've been in Philadelphia for a very long time. Loved where I was. Curtis is an incredibly special school. It's very small. It's free for everyone. There's no tuition there. But the thought of being able to come to New York, to go to work at Lincoln Center every day, and then the word impact, right? We're all in it for impact. We all want to see change. We all want to be the change. So I thought, this is a chance for me to have a big impact. And so my it's a little nuts, but my work week is busy, and I'm in meetings a lot. I'm considered artistic leadership at Juilliard, which means I don't quite have the administrative load that others might, or someone would assume of a dean. But I'm at a lot of concerts and rehearsals, and just making music with students and seeing music, hearing music being made all the time. And Juilliard's also very special because there's this dance and drama school as well. They're smaller, they're really kind of compact and amazing. And my analogs in dance and drama, the two other deans, are phenomenal people to work with. So I love the community there. I love the people, and it's been one of the great adventures of my life coming up here. Perfect midlife crisis. Leave the job you've been at, go to this big new job. I didn't have to buy a fast car or anything. It was fabulous. So yeah.
I'm going to stay at Juilliard for a little bit.
Great.
I'd love for you to share with our listeners. I'm sure some of our listeners have preconceived notions of what Juilliard is.
Sure, of course.
And what would you share if you put it all in a capsule and say a day in the life of? What would you say to all the teachers and families listening about what it is? Like you said, Lincoln Center, are they still doing all that construction up there? I remember the last time.
There's plenty of construction.
There's plenty, yeah.
So, New York City, it's the whole city.
I miss it. But what would you share with our listeners about a day in the life of a student at Juilliard?
Well, these are, it's not some people I think that's very cutthroat. It's not. Even when I was a student there, it was more like we were in the trenches together trying to do this thing, Now it's different. Now there's an incredibly warm and supportive, I mean, it was supportive then, but now it's like really integral to the community there. Students are looking out for each other. We are talking about the students all the time, individually, in groups, thinking about the whole student body all the time. It's a huge part of what we do. For the students themselves, a day in the life means going to classes, practicing, working with other students, collaborating, and they're very earnest about it. I mean, this music brings them tremendous joy. And a lot of pain too, a lot of struggling, like, oh, how am I going to learn this passage? I have to, and I have to play it for my teacher tomorrow. And, it's part of developing the grit that you need to kind of to get through and to become a professional. Because when you're out in the world, no one cares if you, had a bad night's sleep, or, didn't, your dog ate your homework. Or cat in my case. So it's, but these young people love the music. They love Brahms and Beethoven. They love more recent composers. They love discovering composers they haven't learned about before, for discovering for themselves, I should say. Underrepresented composers, living composers. It's all part of what they do, and they take tremendous joy in it and pride in the execution, the performance, the creating of the work. So it's not this, we see these schools like these, like, oh, Juilliard, but then when you're part of the community, you're in the community, right? It's a whole different thing. There's no snobbery. In fact, I think there's a kind of real fear of seeming like a snob, and yet an incredible commitment to a really rich repertoire that goes back centuries and centuries.
Thank you.
I am sitting here thinking about, at the beginning of our conversation, we were talking about community when Pete shared about the production at his school and how the family and community really came together for it and has supported you, Pete, and lifted you up. And I would imagine if you attend Juilliard or any other music program or school, if that is your passion, and use that word again, you feel like you found your people, right? Like you kind of said, you're in the trenches together, but there's something about when you're around other educators, or if you're around other musicians, or I always loved hanging out when there was a production, Pete, at the theater at the school, because those people were just so fun to be around, and the energy between them all, being in their happy place of what they were creating and building together is just so beautiful. And so I'm wondering, David, for anyone who has a student, or even we have parents who listen who have a child that seems to be really drawn to composing or to playing an instrument, and they, the parent or teacher maybe they're not the music teacher like Pete is. What would you recommend to do to try to help support a child that is showing interest in music?
Well, I'll say what I think, and I'm really interested in what Pete has to say as someone who's working regularly with people younger than I usually work with. Encouragement is kind of everything, and there's the Suzuki method where the parent plays alongside their child and kind of learns, and then inevitably the child starts getting better and better and better than the parent. They're like, hey, how can you play that and I can't? So but that kind of gets to the heart of what that encouragement can look like. And to like I said, I don't have children, but I've seen a lot of young people flourish, and they flourish with a warm but demanding approach, a supportive but demanding approach. So they know that their parent or their teacher, it's the same kind of thing in a way, that they're there no matter what. They can fall on their butts, they can make big mistakes, and their mentor, their parent, they're there. It's okay. But there's expectations too, right? You can't just kind of do things when you want, how you want. That's why it's called work. So, warm but demanding, I think. And maybe demanding is not even quite the right word, but persistently encouraging to pursue the work that they need to do. I don't know, Pete, how's it been for you?
I'm on board with you 100%. And it goes to respect. Everything with what we do goes to respect for yourself, respect for the art, respect for the opportunity to express to others, respect for your audience, respect for your family. And in doing that, you're going to make such an amazing person out of yourself. That's what's most important to me. And it's also it's also so important when you have a child who says, Dad, 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 this is what I want. This is what speaks to me. I have this burn in me to do this. And the parents are like, yeah, 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 yeah. Get back on the iPad. Yeah, 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 yeah. Get back on the field. My parents, who I love dearly, we had this quota thing. I was so performing arts, but for every music thing or theater thing I did, I had to do all these other things because they wanted a well-rounded child, which I understand. But when you have a child with a voice and is having the courage to share that voice with you and say, this is me, the parents need to have the courage to listen to that child and support that child 100%. So listening and respect, I would throw into what you just said, David.
Yeah, beautifully put.
Yeah,
Totally. And that kind of goes for the rest of our lives too, doesn't it?
exactly. And gosh, if we could, if there's any administrators or principals or superintendents listening, you know, they put us arts teachers in these god-awful professional development things that have nothing to do with us. If you could have an elementary school teacher and a college professor in the same field talk, or elementary with high school, we could do such amazing things. Because like David said, I'm at the beginning of this journey. He's further along, not at the end, but further along, because it's a lifelong journey. There's so much we can learn from each other. And gosh, this has been my favorite episode ever. So thank you.
Already, wow.
Thank you.
Well, but Pete, you represent the pipeline, right?
Right,
The pipeline
right.
is where we can actually make change, really. Because
Exactly.
by the time they're going to Juilliard, they're pretty sure what they want to do. Now, it's not that students at Juilliard are all going to be very successful professional musicians. Some of them will be doctors or lawyers or candlestick makers, or
Yep.
you know, or they'll teach music as well, you know, and pursue everything. But the skills they learn are very fungible, right? They learn, if you're going to give a recital, you're learning about presentation, and maybe you're the head of your section, you're learning about leadership. You're playing chamber music in a quartet, you're learning about collaboration. But it all starts at the age, you know, with the younger musicians that you're working with, you know, Pete, that this is where they get set up, really. This is where we can kind of move the needle when we're talking about who has access, right? And who is participating, who's in the room having the conversation. And so, yeah, no, and I've been in many classrooms over the years and have only incredible admiration and respect for people who work with, you know, for arts teachers, because that's a hard job. I mean, you have to be in it and like focus, because you know, kids. I remember teaching a lesson to a 5-year-old, a violin lesson, but you don't play violin. That's true. But you know, I had a friend who played violin. I was like, what do I teach a 5-year-old? She said, just try to even get her to hold the instrument. And, I tried to keep the kid from crawling out the window. So I know that's probably younger than who you work with, Pete, but you know, it just being able to keep a young person focused on the task at hand and to find joy and love in what they do, that's incredible to me. So,
Let alone a room full of them, right, Pete? Kindergarten class.
I got stories.
I bet.
He's got some good stories. Well, as much as I'd love to continue this conversation, because it's just, you know, we need to lift up the arts. We need to lift up our teachers in the arts. You mentioned Mr. T. Is there the original Mr. T? Is there another teacher, mentor, coach, anyone growing up or even recently that you just want to share a story about? Because we feel like we kind of learn from each other about what teachers are doing to support their students.
I had a teacher, you know, sometimes you'll have a teacher repeat the same thing to you or say something and you're like, yeah, oh, that's great. Yeah, okay, you know, and then like 5 years later, oh, that's what they meant, you know, these seeds that kind of get planted and blossom much later. The teacher always said to me, you know, when you become your own teacher, this, and this will happen. And I was like, oh yeah, my own teacher, you know. And what I learned was, and I think what he meant was that eventually that kind of inner critic that we have matures. and our technique grows to meet our kind of artistic, our aesthetic judgment and so forth. And as that matures and that inner critic stops barking at you or stop saying, oh, what are people going to think about what you're doing? Because you have to be very vulnerable if you're any kind of artist, or teacher for that matter. Anytime you're getting up in front of people and sharing information. And eventually that inner critic matures, and then you start teaching yourself. You find yourself learning from what you do. You learn by doing it. It's this iterative process. It's not about inspiration. It's about doing something every day. And every day you take something away from it and you start growing on your own. And that's what that teacher meant. And so that's an example, I think, of sometimes we hear a message and maybe we're not ready for it, and then we become ready for it later.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love it. Well, there are so many things. I don't know if you noticed, sometimes we are all looking down. We tend to take
so
notes when
I have so
friend
many
at
questions.
the table. Yeah. As we're talking in this conversation. And Pete, if you have other questions, feel free to jump in. Is it okay for a few minutes if we just share what some of the things that we talked about that kind of sparked our interest, or we wanted to share back? And
I would love that. Yeah.
Okay, great. Letitia, I might let you go first.
Okay. David. So one of the things I wanted to share, and I kind of mentioned this earlier on in the show about helping my community, serving my community through leading this grief group. And I wanted you to know, David, that I listened to Candle Blessings on your YouTube channel, which I highly recommend every listener do. And I closed my eyes and I just listened. And the tears just came down. Because as a therapist, I have to find ways to release, right, the weight that I'm carrying. And I just wanted to, first of all, share my gratitude for that beautiful, beautiful piece. It brought me some healing. So, sir, I thank you for what you're contributing to the world. So I don't want to get emotional. David, you're making me cry.
I'm like all verklempt here. I'm like, thank you.
So I wanted to share that because I'm a big supporter of the arts. And as a therapist, I use music, especially with my young people. They get to start their therapy session with what song is best describing your feelings today. And I'm learning so much and about different genres and why. So I certainly wanted to share that. I think for me, so many things, like you said, Pete, lots of questions, lots of great takeaways. But I love this idea of encouragement being everything with warmth and expectations. I thought that was brilliant. Encouragement is everything with warmth and expectations. So that was my highlighted takeaway, aside from the beautiful Candle Blessings. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Letitia. That's very kind. Thank you.
All right, Pete.
I put a pin in one takeaway, and I'm going to sneak in one more question.
Go for it.
Let's see. So from the beginning, our most important tools as an artist is openness and vulnerability. That's a bumper sticker right there. I love it. And then, sir, if you had a room full of decision makers, policy makers, leaders of our school systems, and you were presenting to them the importance of music in our schools, what would you say to them tonight?
Wonderful question.
Yeah, it is. I mean, even when I was in school here in New York at Manhattan School of Music, so that's the late 90s. Even then, in New York City, only 1 out of every 10 public schools had a full-time music teacher. That was then. So what is it now?
Right.
We have taken the arts for granted in this country, unfortunately, and yet it is the thing that connects all of us. We hear a lot about STEM. Yo-Yo Ma talks about STEAM, adding that A, that art's in there. It touches everything, music in particular, but all the arts. They help people express, they help people articulate, they help people communicate and be human together. It is therapeutic for many people, just being a part of making art. So I can think of no greater investment in the future of our country, in the civics and the discourse, and having a rational, reasonable, respectful discourse than making the arts available. And frankly, we live in a time where there's very little nuance. Everything, we're shouting at each other. You can't listen if you're shouting, right? Everything is like, this is my view, and if you don't believe it, too bad. The arts are a way for us to understand the shades of gray and the many different colors of things, and nuance itself. So, there's a slowness to art, to reading a book, to making a drawing, that I think it would really benefit people. I'm sorry about
That's
that
okay.
call. That was my wife. She's like, "What are you doing?" She's in Reno right now playing violin.
Did you feed the cats?
That is I bet that's exactly what.
There we go. I mean, it's important.
Let me just write.
Cats are
There
good.
we go. Cats, okay, exactly.
There we go.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Two of us.
So yeah, it's a great question, and it's one that I know is on the mind of many teachers. So.
Well, I'm going to tag on. I feel if arts were more a priority in all our schools, the news that happens far too often, the violence, it would not be as common. I just believe that in every fiber of my being.
I only believe that is 100% true.
Yeah, definitely. Sweet. Nice, Pete. Good question.
Cool.
Yeah, I have so much I wrote down. There's two that are coming to mind, David. The first one is, I liked the visual or the analogy you gave of that some people ride through life or whatever journey that they're what they're pursuing on an inner tube, so they're just kind of chilling and looking around as they go, as everything goes by, taking it all in, or they're the canoe where they're navigating kind of like each direction and which way they're going. I'm probably more the canoe girl. I wish I was more of an inner tuber. So I'm going to keep that in mind, but I like that because I think that also speaks to when we're teaching our students at any age, that we need to keep in mind that some people are on the inner tube and some people are more comfortable on the canoe. So let's kind of keep that in mind so that we can help them be the person that they want to be, using the best strategies that we can. And then the other thing is, you said something, and it kind of goes to a lot of things that have been going on that I've been, I'm a lover of books, and the idea of banishing a book to me is just preposterous. But you said it in context of just being open to things, being open to music, or being open to listening to different types of music. And you said, no, there's no information I wish I didn't have. And I thought that was really powerful, because information is power. And so I just kind of wanted to bring that back into the conversation, because I like that. We just need to be more open and to explore different parts of music and arts and reading and everything. So I can't tell you how much this conversation has meant to all of us. You as our guest, if there's any last thoughts that you wanted to make sure you impart upon us before we end the conversation, now's your time.
Oh, I'm honored to be in the company of people who are, so clearly committed to the education, the well-being of other human beings. And that's kind of why we do it, right? Is to have our community, to have our chosen families and our real families. Actually, chosen families are as real as it gets. So,
Yeah.
I should say our biological families and our chosen families and our chosen communities. So thank you for having me. It's been really fun to talk and to share with you.
I'm so happy. And for our friends, when they watch the YouTube channel, you've got to watch the background, because we have literally seen night fall upon us in New York City, and it's very, very cool.
Just fast forward from beginning to end, and you get to
It's
see the whole thing.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. David, our listeners, if they want to reach out to you or connect with you, how can they do that?
There, you can go to my website. There's a form there. There's always someone to answer. I love it when people subscribe to my YouTube channel for classical musicians. That's, well, for really any artist, YouTube is a really important social media. I'm not great at answering Instagram messages, but I try. Twitter, all that stuff. I like social media in that it helps me connect with people, and actually I'm always kind of lurking, listening for the music people are putting up, because I love discovering new music for myself and new composers for myself that way. So, yeah,
That's great. And is your Instagram or any of those typically, if we just put in David Ludwig,
David
will
Ludwig
you pop up?
Music is usually the tag, and on YouTube, if you type in David Ludwig Music in the search or David Ludwig Composer, there's another David Ludwig who wrote a very, very successful diet book. So he's beat me in the SEO. I had never heard of it. And then he wrote this bestseller, New York Times bestseller. So if you just write David Ludwig, you'll see a very, very nice looking doctor who's helped a lot of people. But if you write with composer, then you'll definitely get me.
Right.
So yeah.
That's good. Thank you. Easy enough. Pete, where can our listeners and our friends find us?
Friends, wherever you're listening to us, please leave us a review, leave a comment. Let's keep the conversation going. We're on YouTube as well, Instagram and Facebook.
Great.
And our website, teacherpeprally.com. Forgot that one.
Yes, thank you so much. And real quickly, we still have that other giveaway going on for Novel Effect, right? So if you want to really increase engagement with your students or your children when you're reading, check out Novel Effect. We're giving away a 1-year free premium subscription. You just need to do 3 things. Make sure you're following us on the Facebook group page, introduce yourself to the group, and then tell us a book you recommend from another country. We were inspired from our last guest, Ann Morgan, on that one.
Yep.
David, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your passion for music and composing. This has just been such a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful. Thank you.